Hello, hello, fellow Rotarians. Am I on here, Brendan? Can I get a little more juice? Oh, there we go. This is not the agenda. Where's the agenda? Welcome to the Rotary Club of Gainesville Tuesday meeting at the Cade Museum. Please silence your phones and remember to bring your trash to the trash cans after the meeting. Before I invite young Pete Enwall up here to sing and do the Pledge of Allegiance, I wanted to share a brief story. I went down to visit my parents last week in Fort Lauderdale. My dad is 77, he has dementia. He was a public defender for 30 years, and I told my mom, I think it would be good for us to bring him to the courthouse. He hasn't been there in 15 years, and so we bring him to the courthouse where he worked for 28 years, and he's saying to me and my mom, I don't recognize this, I don't recognize this. And then all of a sudden, there's a door, an unmarked door. He opens it and walks inside. And my mom and I said, what the heck is he doing? So we follow him. It was the public defender's office back door, his office's back door, where he worked for 28 years. So something in him, something in his brain made him go in that door and remembered. And it was incredible. So I just wanted to share that with you all. And now, Mr. Enwall, if you'd please join us.
Well, Laurie and I are back over there wondering about that because guess how old we are? Oh yeah, I forgot who he is. Anyway, we're just going to sing God Bless America today, and next week we're going to sing other songs. We have a new list, and so next week we'll start with something else like You Are My Sunshine. Anyway, God bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the night from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Would you join me in pledging allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pete. And looks like we've got none other than Lori Vidal here for the invocation.
So we are talking about food today, and my mother was from a little village in northern Michigan, and basically lived on pot roast and boiled potatoes. Up there, it's real cold, and so my mother was not a good cook. And I married a very, very good cook. And one of the things I found out very quickly, that it is not good to say, sugar, this is not the way my mother makes it. And we had some very, very cold evenings. It was a while before we had children. Let's pray together. As we gather again for food, fellowship, and service, we are so thankful for the abundance of food in our homes and in our opportunities to dine out. Truly, it is around the table that we so often perceive best the warmth of being together. What fun it is to enjoy new experiences when the chef at home hits a home run with a new recipe, or we hit a home run experiencing a new restaurant in our town. Encourage those restaurateurs. And we do as well pray for those who are simply in need of the most basic food needs in our community. Bless those in need and those who have helped raise up provisions to meet those needs, many of whom who are here today. And I pray in the name of the bread of life. Amen.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, thank you. If there's any guests or visiting Rotarians, please stay standing at this time and the microphone will find you. It looks like we got somebody in the back there.
Testing, testing. Looks like nobody's on the mic today, so it's going to be me. Dana?
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I'm Dana Nemeny, and today I have a very great pleasure of introducing two of our visiting Rotarians, Betsy and Doug Whitaker. For some of you, you know Betsy was the first woman president of our Chamber of Commerce and a long-standing member of this club. And they were long-standing members of our community, but now they reside in Lake Chapala, Mexico as expats, and they do amazing Rotary work there. So if you get the chance, ask them about that.
Anybody else? All right, thank you.
You're up next, Brendan, if you want to make your announcement. Brendan. And next, an announcement from Brendan shortly.
Okay, I'll try to do this shortly. I don't know when that is. All right. I've heard that since I was born, so I'm allowed to use that joke as much as I want. All right. I'm going to switch the cameras real quick just to show you a few things, and then we'll... All right, so no matter how many times we talk about Helping Hands Clinic, there's always some people say, what the heck is Helping Hands Clinic? So I wanted to give you a few minutes on that, and then also some pictures, and read to you a quick thing, and then that's it. All right, so obviously our mission, for those who don't know, is to deliver comprehensive health care and psychiatric care and clothing and supplies and food and everything you can think of to the people who really need it. They don't have anywhere else to go, many of them. Also, it's the only place in town, like Nancy talked about last week, where we have a women's empowerment program. Safety is really important and comfort for these women, and there's also a lot of abuse, physical and otherwise. We just won't go deeper into that, but I think you know what I'm talking about. We do a lot of crying and a lot of revealing. These people talk to us about it, and they don't even talk to the police about it. So it's a heart-wrenching, but also we feel a very important mission we do, where we give them safe showers every week, the only place in town that can have a safe shower for homeless women on the street. And it's just a place where they can feel like it's their home, where they can feel protected. No men are allowed on the second floor. Okay, it's just for the women. All right, so of course, just a real quick reminder of when you're homeless, all of your incidents of diabetes, hypertension, heart attack jump by double, triple, you name it. So it's very important to try to alleviate that. Some of you have noticed this from 10, 20 years ago, back when Nancy Hart started the SWAG, or helped inspire the commissioners to start the SWAG area, the healthcare area, the high impact need areas in town. Those red areas are places where there's documented abuse, documented maltreatment for children, and Helping Hands is right in the middle of that middle red spot. So of course, some of the services we do, bus passes, medical services, resume writing, anything you can think of, we're going to do it. This is with Grace and Helping Hands combined, which we started, of course, as you know, back in 2014. Helping Hands started in 1989. Okay, so obviously we have a rape crisis center now. Again, back to the women, protecting the women. This lady, I'd love to show her quickly because she had cancer and was about to die within 6 months. Now she's in remission. So you blame that on whatever you want. I think that's really amazing. She comes every week. Give out all kinds of things, including bikes, whatever we need. Okay, and of course, like I said, that's our building, by the way. People don't think we're that huge. They thought we were just a little room somewhere, but we take up a very large building, and every square inch is used for something. All right, so just some more pictures for you, and just some quick stats. 75,000 visits, y'all, okay? 16,000 individuals over the years. So we obviously treat the homeless. Everybody thinks we're 100% homeless clients, but we're not. 53%, okay? So that's a surprising stat. The value of the volunteers, the state values that. We don't. Almost $1 million worth of just blood, sweat, and tears, free labor on behalf of the volunteers. 100 of them, over 100. Psychiatrists, professionals, people like you and me, everything you can think of. Okay, some more pictures, just every day, every week kind of existence. All kinds of projects, things to make them feel like a human being is what we kind of try to do. But again, quick glance at a lot of our services, people don't realize we do all these things. And I don't want to take up too much time, but you get it. A lot of things going on. More pictures to show you, just this random, okay, heartfelt stuff. We like to give them humanity. This is for Wes because he was giving me a crap last week about where I chose the stats from and which years I chose, so I tried to choose a little bit more spread out. But anyway, as you can see, no matter how you slice it, no matter which years you pick, it's always growing. So despite the homelessness going down in our community, which is a big accomplishment for the county, the need is going up. So people want to get help. They still need the help, is the point of that. All right, and of course, we want to improve the effectiveness and increase our diagnosing ability. So any donation you make, so it goes toward that, and of course, towards all the supplies we give out. So we're just trying to give them anything we can think of. And Nancy talked last week about the Women's Empowerment Program. That's them lining up to get in. All right, and this is a quote from one of them that that's their favorite day of the week. All right, so we want to improve gynecological care for the women, pap smears, STD testing, you name it. We're trying to make it safer. And no matter which side of the political aisle you sit on, I know we have both in this room, you got to know that it's worthwhile because it saves us money on the other side. Why wait till diabetes becomes chronic before you treat it, right? Why not treat it for 1/10 of the money up front? That's what we're trying to do. Okay, and this is a lot of things we offer to the women again. Increases in visits and in unduplicated women. Nancy bragged about this last week, but new women coming to us that finally feel that they're safe in any environment. 15,000 people served so far. And to finish, just a quick quote. Some of you know this gentleman, Dr. Richard Christensen. He not only did a lot of psychiatry in town, but he also started all the physical, well, not all the physical, but all the mental health and some of the physical programs at the Salzbacher Clinic in Jacksonville. He spent a lot of his years, recent years, doing mission trips in Africa, and he was killed in Africa on a mission trip by a car on that hit him on the side of the road. The medical school devotes an entire day every year to him. They call it the Grand Rounds, Dr. Christensen Grand Rounds. Some of you may have heard of that. And there's also places in Wilmot Gardens, which Rotary has visited for service projects. There are parts in Wilmot Gardens devoted to him, monuments devoted to him. So anyway, he said in Helping Hands, I have, and of course I can't read it, consistently evidenced in gestures of recognition and respect, words of empathy and compassion, a fundamental and simple vocabulary of acceptance and mercy. It's an environment where those with physical and emotional suffering are recognized and welcomed unconditionally. And that's a good way to end, and hopefully you see the spirit of what we try to do. And of course, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you. And now it's time for our president, Mr. John Thomas. He's only got a few more of these, so let's give him a round of applause as he approaches the podium.
Well, good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It's a pleasure to see everybody. I wouldn't think about it as being a happy day because I think it's going to be a rainy day, but hopefully it is a rainy day because we certainly need it. A couple things real quick. I believe we got the district conference this weekend, so if you make it, please report back. I think Jay may be going. Maybe. We had some Rotarians make it to the Make-A-Wish inaugural brunch last week, representing the club. We had a board meeting last night that was productive. I'm proud to say that we are in great financial standing, and I have two wonderful announcements. We have two brand new members. If they will please stand up if they're in attendance. Lillian Baker and Noah Haystay. Big round of applause. We're excited to have you join the club. And next Thursday at the Twist, which is at the renovated Gainesville Lodge, we'll be having the Area Rotary Club Social. And with that, I'd like to introduce our speaker. Eli Gurman is the owner and operator of Proud Pickles, an alternative snack and food company proudly proclaiming itself the healthy concession stand, a hobby turned obsession with food waste has grown his culinary abilities, and I have put off getting bifocals too long, apparently. Eli, if you would join us up here, we'd love to hear your talk.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the prayer or whatever that was before we all bowed our heads. That really struck home with me. Thank you. Yeah, so like you said, my name is, with the PowerPoint? Cool, thank you. My name's Elijah Gurman. A lot of people in town know me as Fish at the farmers markets. They'll find at the farmers markets you'll find me at. Very little bit about me. We are here to talk about food waste today. I have a background in food, 20 plus years. I'm a graduate of Eastside High School's culinary program. And I have an obsession with food waste, much to the detriment of those who love me. I am the owner-operator of Proud Pickles. My truck is called Proud Provisions, soon to be Brine and Dine, where we originally focused heavily on pickles, but over time is just preserved foods in general. So pickles, jams, dips, spreads, basically delicious food that just doesn't go bad quickly. My goal over time is to have essentially a food product for everything that you'll find at the store. So this was an absurdly big number. Back in 2019, the EPA estimated about 106 million pounds of food was wasted in the United States. A good portion of that was from food and beverage production, so Lay's potato chips, the waste that goes along with that, and then also households. That's what it looks like. And all of that is not just the spiritual sense of time and labor wasted, but also just money. Like, that's all dollars. So you don't even have to be altruistic to realize that that's kind of a waste. 43% of the waste comes from households. And a lot of the food and beverage manufacturers have uses for the waste, so a lot of it will become compost or animal feed, but at home, most of it will become compost at best. We don't really have a lot of uses at home. So a lot of it is because of spoilage, a lot of it is because of either improper storing, or you just buy too much stuff before it spoils. Pretty simple. Most issues in this world, I think, can be explained simply, but the solution is the hard part. So I was trying to boil it down into something more bite-sized and not a lot of like technical jargon about what you can do to help solve that. And to help show that, we'll give you a very small demo. When y'all came in, there's a bunch of little cups at the front full of what I'm about to make. This is a pineapple tea. Real simple. So this is just... Sorry about that. These are simply pineapple skins. So I make a pickle with pineapple. I have skins left over. I char them on a grill, which you don't necessarily have to do. That's just something that I do to add a little jus to it, you know. And you simply add water, a good bit of water. Yeah, it's a vinegar jug, but trust me, it's water that's in there. And then this is just ginger peels. So also, I peel ginger, I have leftover skins, I put them in a dehydrator, and once they're dry, I just blend them. I want this to be so simple for you that this is not really a recipe. This is just something that you throw together. I have specific weights and measurements so that I can have a consistent product to sell to people. But when you're making this stuff at home, the goal is just make delicious food. It doesn't matter whether it's a little bit more this or a little bit more that. If you wanted consistency with the product, yeah. If you wanted consistency with it, obviously you could like write down your recipes, but it's not necessary. When I talk about these sorts of things, I try not to focus on a lot of technical things. So these are the 10 food waste commandments that I came up with. We'll go through each one in depth, but really quickly. Shop with a plan, don't overbuy, store things properly, Use scraps as ingredients, like right here. Don't blindly trust date labels. Two concepts that I'm very familiar with: dials versus switches, shapes fitting into other shapes, use first zone in the fridge, cooking with reusing in mind, and then finally like learning preservation techniques. So shop with a plan, and a lot of these will sound like common sense, but like I said, I wanted this to be very digestible for everyone. So I want you to shop realistically and not ideally, right? Two ways you can go about it. One is setting things in stone. This is great for if you're someone who likes to diet, you care a lot about your macros. You say, I'm buying salmon, it's going to go with the cauliflower and the potatoes on this day at this time. Most people don't live that way. So the other way to go about that, and either way is fine. The other way is not so much set in stone, but just knowing how you're going to utilize your stuff. So for example, I'm not a big fan of cottage cheese. Most people have it with like fruit. I hate that. But I found it's actually really delicious when you scramble it with eggs in the morning. So whenever I buy cottage cheese, I know that I'm going to have it with my eggs. So it's not something that's like in the back of the fridge and maybe I'll use it at some point, I'm not sure. Additionally, you want to have essentially like a number of recipes for every item. I call them recipe toolkits. For example, when people hear chickpeas, most people think hummus. So hummus over days and weeks might get kind of boring, and so maybe you won't eat all of it, and some of it starts to spoil. But if you know that chickpeas can be used in salads, or I can throw it with some roasted veggies, or I can dust it with cornstarch and fry it, and put it on top of tacos, every single one of them becomes a utilization aspect, a utilization recipe, so that you're not sitting on product for days or weeks on end, which is how a lot of people spoil things. Don't overbuy, duh, seems obvious. This really applies more to fresh foods versus dried or canned goods, especially for like BOGO. We all shop at Publix, and I love those deals too. But if you get 2 big boxes of salad greens, just make a note to yourself. I'm eating a lot of salad this week. It seems simple, but even I'm guilty of going into the box to get some, and some of it's wilted because it's been there a little longer than it should have. Other example would be something like watermelon. Well, if you purchase a dehydrator, they're not particularly expensive. You can throw some of those chunks in the dehydrator, and depending on the size, if they're large, they'll turn more into like a fruit leather sort of texture. If they're smaller, they'll become almost crunchy, like candy. Also, with overbuying, you don't overcrowd your fridge this way, which is essential because airflow is what keeps it cold. Also, if you do overbuy, utilizing your freezer earlier rather than later helps. So things like chicken, if it's starting to look a little weird and you freeze it at that point, when you take it out, it will be at that exact point of possibly wasting. So a lot of this is being proactive and just having, you don't have to have a military plan to go through with this. It's just knowing, okay, I have this much stuff, I can use my freezer or other things to help alleviate that. Storing properly, there are tons of tricks that you can find. YouTube is a great source for this, whether it's herbs or fruits or produce or meat. Familiarize yourself with fridge basics, like milk and eggs should be towards the back of the fridge where it will stay the coldest. You want meat near on the bottom, not hanging over your salad greens, because you're not going to cook the salad greens and nobody wants to get E. coli. So scraps are ingredients. So this is like what I'm showing you up here, something that most people throw away. We all get the fresh fruit cut at Publix, and they don't do stuff like this. I don't fault them for it, but that right there is an example of money, time, and energy that doesn't have to be just simply thrown away. So meat trim can go into sauces and soups. Veggie peels can either go into the same sauces or soups. They can be dehydrated and blended, like you saw with the ginger peels that I have. Watermelon peel is another great example. The green part itself is far too fibrous to really chew, but once again, dehydrate it, blend it. You have plant fiber and nutrition that you can add to yogurts and smoothies. It doesn't have a lot of flavor on its own, but every part of the vegetable, every part of the fruit and the animal, they are all essential and they all have components that are good for you. And then pineapple skins. Teas, the leftovers that I've made with this, I've actually blended before and made really amazingly good banana bread with. So just, you can kind of start to get the idea that all of these things can be utilized in different ways. Use by dates, not really trusting them these days. It's really your senses. You know, if something says it's 2 days past its expiration date, but it smells good and it looks good, chances are it's probably still good. Spoiled milk is very easy to tell. Moldy bread is very obvious. And if you're ever in the mood, feel free to listen to some Great Depression era stories. They are exceptionally eye-opening for what people will make do when food waste is not an option. So this one is actually very dear to me, dials versus switches. So everyone's gonna make mistakes in the home and in the kitchen. And many foods are not a switch between this is right and this is wrong. For example, cake batter, right? The difference between cake batter, pancake batter, and crepe batter is really just the amount of milk you have. So at what point does it become crepe batter between the mixing? It's just the amount of milk that you've added to it. So let's say you're making a cake recipe and you happen to add too much milk. You don't need to throw it out. You just realize that this is going to be utilized in a different way than you had originally planned. If you continue to add milk to that same recipe to the point where it won't bake into any sort of cake or flapjack, you can simply throw it on the stove, cook it until the flour thickens, and then you could chill that and add some berries, and it becomes a filling that you can add to different foods, or you can dry it into a cookie or a cracker. I've made a lot of mistakes in food, so this is how I know these things. And then this is another one that's very dear to me, so shapes into shapes. So the concept is circles can't make triangles, but a triangle could make a square or a rectangle or a hexagon. In a similar fashion, a potato will never be a steak, but a potato can be a soup, a sauce, a French fry, a potato, a tater tot, a filling. There are tons of uses for it, and this kind of goes back to the chickpea idea of having different ways to utilize the same product, which help that novelty will help keep you from getting bored with it. Let's say you have tomato sauce that you're trying to make, and you're supposed to add broth to the recipe, and as you're pouring it, the dog bumps into you and you dump the whole thing. You haven't ruined it, although it's too thin now for a sauce. You can simply add some canned veggies, some noodles, and some beans, and now you have a minestrone soup. So over and over, you will see that like nothing's ever really wasted, even if you can't utilize it in the way that you had, originally planned. So use first zone, first in, first out, common phrase used in the food industry. Whatever is oldest, you use first. You have blueberries, you buy a fresh one, you put the fresh ones behind the old ones, so you use the old ones first. Same idea, just with your leftovers. Have a spot in your fridge, doesn't really matter where. I have leftover taco meat from last night. I'll put that right here in the front, so when I go to eat next, that's the first thing that I use. It'll help just keep food circulating in your fridge so you don't have to worry about things spoiling as quickly. This kind of goes hand in hand with it, cooking with reusing in mind. This is just knowing how to use leftovers, right? It's knowing that the soup you made last night will be the starter for the sauce tomorrow. Having recipes that are so simple, they're not really recipes, like sliced steak on a tortilla. That's not a recipe that Mario Batali is going to teach you, but it is something that's really easy, really quick, and it's utilizing that leftover stuff so that you're not going to have it go to waste. A couple other examples: spaghetti and tomatoes, you add broth, you have soup. Roasted veggies can go into wraps or salads or omelets. Finally, preservation techniques. This is kind of my wheelhouse. So things like pickling and fermenting, and all of these have infinite use cases. Can't quite read that. Yeah, so pickling and fermenting, all produce is available for this, not just cucumbers. Fermenting is obviously a little bit more healthy for the gut, but both are excellent for you. Freezing, just make sure that you're using it earlier rather than later. It's a pause button. It's not a graveyard. Drying applies to everything: fruits, veggies, meats, fish, herbs. If you have leftover smoothie after you made one in the morning, just pour it on a tray, put it in the dehydrator, and by the end of the day, you'll have some sort of fruit leather. I've made plenty of candies that way. Canning is a great method, especially if you want to have something that's shelf stable and will last basically forever. You just want to make sure that you know how to do the technique correctly. Botulism is a concern, but like most things, if you follow the basics and do it right, you'll be fine. Candying, great for fruits. And then finally, composting is kind of like a last-ditch effort. If you have chickens or a garden at home, anything that you are going to throw into the garbage can eventually be utilized in that, more or less. And then just a few recipes that kind of bring a lot of this together. The pineapple tea is one of them. I've made pickles with watermelon rind. I've also made delicious candies, almost like fruit leathery candies with watermelon rind. I make a really banging cauliflower leaf kimchi. The leaves of the cauliflower, most people throw them out. They make wonderful ferments. And if you guys want to try, I have a little bit with that for me today. Even burnt bread, you could dry it, blend it into a powder, and then add that to a fresh batch of breadcrumbs. You don't want to add too much, obviously, because, you got to be careful with those burnt flavors. But that toasted charred flavor doesn't have to necessarily be thrown out. So these are just a few ideas for you guys to take home. Like I said, most of it, I think, is common sense. But it's really the concept that you don't have to throw this stuff away. There is a use for pretty much all of these things that we would call food. And that's everything. Thank you.
Questions?
Make them good.
Thanks, Eli. That was fantastic. Do you share this with kids at schools, anything like that?
Not currently. My business. Thank you. Not much currently. My business has kept me stretched very thin for a while. However, I'm working on a new food trailer that should kind of streamline everything. And this is definitely something that I'd like to bring back to my high school, East Side, or other places. So if any of you know of any teachers or schools that would be interested in these sorts of things, please send them my way. I have lots of business cards up here to help you contact me that way.
Yes, great presentation.
Thank you.
How do we compare with other countries in terms of waste?
That's a good question. I haven't done the research on that. I will say that probably I would assume European countries tend to be better about it. France in particular, for example, their food for them is valued at a much higher level than we do, I should say. I think that particularly America got used to industrialized cheap products, which was great at the time because, it's great to have boots that don't take, a month to make. And the same thing could be applied to, products like lamps or cars or even food. But at the same time, I think now people are starting to realize that industrial scale does have its costs. And so America got used to cheap, plentiful food, which was great. But I think there was a huge lack of quality compared to the way that nature intended a lot of these things to be grown. So I would say we're probably not as good. However, I don't really know the numbers.
Yeah, I was just curious. When I recently redid our kitchen, we bought a counter depth refrigerator, so stuff wouldn't as likely get stuck in the back. It sort of helped. And one other little side note that's kind of funny, we get our eggs from a retired nurse who just loves to raise chickens. And comes fall, she's looking for pumpkins that people are no longer wanting around because she just throws them out in the yard, and she's got all the birds will eat every part of that fruit.
Yeah, I was actually talking with Tara, the lovely woman who provided the catering today, and she has some chickens, and she'll toss her scraps to them. So nature often has the recycling program already set up, and it's just our modern way of life that has kind of gotten in the way of those natural recycling processes. So, with everything that I said, if you have a bunch of chickens at home, you don't have to do all the weird stuff that I do. You can just throw it out the backyard and then, collect the eggs. it doesn't matter how you're doing it. And I think really it's more about just like an awareness of knowing like, oh, I don't have to toss this into the garbage. I've got a pig in the backyard, or I have chickens, or I have goats. And that animal husbandry relationship, I think, answered those questions for a long time.
Question,
Yes, sir.
statement, great talk.
Thank you.
Question is, if you ferment something, do you destroy its food value? Is it something you taste and that's so good, or does it have any value nutritionally?
Fermented foods? No, you do not destroy it. I mean, there might be some products that maybe certain vitamins or minerals maybe diminish in quality, but overall, there's a reason why pretty much every culture has some form of fermented foods. It usually makes them more bioavailable for the body. It introduces healthy bacteria for your gut. The analogy I usually use with people is, so vegetables in general are called prebiotics, and fermented foods are probiotics. The probiotics are like bringing your friends to the party, and the prebiotics are like sending out the invitations. And so if you're consuming vegetables of any sort, it's going to be good for you. And the fermented foods are just a more bioly available. So generally speaking, like thumbs up, fermented foods are very healthy for you.
And now for my question. Is that pot up there just a teaser, or are you going to give us some pineapple tea?
Oh no, I brought gallons today. So there's a bunch up near the front, but I've also got a little bit up here with me that you can try out. Yeah.
Great talk. I prepare a lot of meals ahead of time for my 96-year-old mother who lives with me, and I cook them ahead, and then I cover them with parchment paper and put them in the freezer because I know she's going to reheat them, and I don't want to put plastic on them because I'm afraid she might accidentally, microwave them with plastic. Any recommendations for that kind of thing? Do you think parchment keeps the freezer burn kind of thing, or any suggestions?
Yeah, so parchment paper would work fine. It also depends on how long it's going to be in there. Something that's been in there for a couple of days or a week is not going to have nearly the same kind of like freezer burn risk that you would for something that's going to be in there for months on end. If you definitely want to make sure that she's not, getting that after the parchment paper, you can always put an extra layer of plastic around the top, especially if there's like a gap between the parchment and the top. Like there's an obvious separation that you'll have to puncture. So that might be something. Bags are really, like plastic bags would be a way to do it. There's also like, they're essentially like beeswax lined fabric that can work for it as well. As much as none of us are happy about the way that plastic gets used, and it is an unfortunate reality that we did live with. It is also kind of like hard to get away from it. Even with like food, for example, we can stop that, but that's not going to stop the single-use plastics that you use in hospitals for understandable reason. So it's like everything. There's just a balance, and I think that people got very used to the cheap plastics, and it's just about trying to not completely overhaul everything. It's just step by step trying to find little alternatives. There's a fun guy on YouTube or TikTok or wherever it is that every time he has a kitchen utensil break, he recreates it with wood. So like it's not about overhauling the whole kitchen. It's just little by little, slowly trying to make better steps. But if you Google this or ask an AI, I'm sure they would have plenty of other options for you.
You mentioned your nickname was Fish.
Yeah.
How did you get your nickname?
I'm a
And then
catch.
Speaking of fish, how would you recommend storing fish if you're going to keep it for anywhere for a week to a year?
So the very short version of the name Fish, like I said, I've worked in food most of my life. After Gainesville, I went to Miami and New York. And New York is a pretty crazy food scene, very intense, very high standards. Every day felt like a heart attack, especially for like an ADHD type like me who has a hard time like organizing myself sometimes. So had a lot of hard lessons up there. when I came back to Gainesville, I knew that I would likely end up back in the food scene. And I was talking with my brother about coming back, and he asked, are you going to miss New York? I said, yeah, probably parts, blah, blah, blah. And at some point I said, I feel like I'm going to feel like a big fish in a small pond, referring to the work differential, right? I'm used to working up here all the time, and thank God, Gainesville's a little more chill. And I have yet to have a bad day since being back. He didn't ask me to clarify. He just thought I was being arrogant. So for like 6 months, he'd only refer to me as big fish. And so now it's just like, it's a fun thing. The best part was about a year later, he was working at a local restaurant. He came home, he was blowing off steam, and then he basically said the same thing. I feel like a big fish in a small pond. So it was just fun to see the whole thing come full circle. As far as fish preservation, keep it dry, keep it cold. So if you're going to eat it at any point within a couple of days, you want to keep it on ice and preferably draining so that it's not sitting in a bunch of water. If not, freezing is perfectly fine. There are tons of great products when it comes to fish that you can freeze. I would just advise to make sure it's dry and seal it as best you can. Vacuum sealers are probably the most ideal. And make sure that obviously, if it's fish, it doesn't have like the guts inside of it, things of that nature. Once again, like everything that I've talked about today, for the most part, you could find tips and tricks via the internet. And they will tell you all the stuff that you need to know. How do I keep fish for a year? Obviously, freezing is a great way. You could slice it thin and dehydrate it and make like fish jerky. Smoking it is very, very nice if you know how to use a smoker. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Eli.
Hey, everyone thank Chris. He's the reason I'm here.
Oh, busted. No, but I appreciate the talk, and I like the creative ideas on how to use things. And I was wondering, was food waste the motivation to start the business, or kind of what gave you the idea to start a pickling business? And also, where could we find you?
Gotcha. The business started out of desperation. I moved back to Gainesville to, it was a complete pivot. I was originally to run a laser tag business with my brothers, which eventually became bounce houses over time. And the pickling started because the 2020 lockdowns happened, and I still needed to pay rent. And so I was trying to figure out what can I make that doesn't go bad. Like, I've worked in restaurants for 20 years. There's no way I can't figure out something. Maybe I can't pay rent, but I can probably make at least $1. And so like I knew a lot about pickling and fermenting. And so I just started making recipes at home. Eventually I got into farmers markets. I drove my brother absolutely nuts. He would open up the fridge and it was just a pickle hell for him. It was great. So it happened just because like I needed to do something, and over time, just the pickle guy who I am kind of became to be. As far as finding me, I operate out of Crafty Bastards in Magnolia Park. You can actually buy my pickles next door at their bottle shop, and there's a couple of farmers markets in town, one on Monday and one on Saturdays that you'll find me at.
Eli, what's your favorite method to reheat food for the second use? And are you anti-microwave like my entire family?
I'm not anti anything for the most part. It's just time and place, and like, does it work properly? Like, I use the microwave plenty. It just depends on like what your goal is. A lot of people don't like the idea of microplastics. So if you do use, like, the microwave's fine. All it's really doing is steaming your food. It's just steaming it from the inside out. It's just making the molecules move. The problem is that the containers that you put it in generally are plastic, and so then you have things leaching into it. So if you're using the microwave, something like glass would be a great way to get around that. It's not a bad tool. It's the same way like frying foods isn't bad. It's just, time and place, context, and balance. Yeah.
Looks like we have two more in the back.
You alluded to this, but would you elaborate a little bit on the sell by, use by dates?
Yeah, so those are, sell by use dates are basically suggestions. Like, you know what spoiled food tastes like. Generally it's, whether it's a 2-week lifespan or a 1-month lifespan or whatever the date is, that's generally done in experiments under specific conditions. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it won't spoil after, and it doesn't mean that it won't spoil before. If your refrigerator at home doesn't quite operate that it's supposed to, and it's like kind of around the proper temperature, but maybe you have like one zone of it that doesn't quite sit where it should, maybe the cheese is going to spoil a little earlier than you should. But just because something has a little bit of mold on it doesn't mean the whole thing is spoiled. You can cut the moldy part of the cheese off and eat the rest of it. There's I've heard lots of stories of like I said before, from like the Great Depression, of like people eating like completely moldy sandwiches because their choice was that or starving. So it's really more about familiarizing yourself, and like over time you'll learn what it means for what fish smells like when it spoils, or what meat looks like when it's not good anymore. And like that might mean you put something in your mouth that you're not a fan of, but like chances are you're not going to die just because you touched a piece of moldy bread to your tongue. It's not pleasant. But most people over time learn what those things are. So it's not just, looking at a label and taking that as God's word and just understanding that, okay, after about 2 weeks, the milk might not be as good. You smell it and it's like, all right, it's still fine. Next day it doesn't smell as good. Yeah, that's up for you to decide.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, Eli, thank you so much for coming today and talking with us. Man, it smells fantastic up here. So I am. In just a second. In appreciation for you speaking with us today, we're going to make a donation to the Rotary Foundation in your name. So I appreciate it. And this young man sending you a picture of us. I'm going to grab a drink in just a second. Next week, our speaker is going to be Cindy Michael with the Alzheimer's Association. The Rotary Reading Safari winner is 134278. 134278. Do we have a winner? 278. All right, stand up and say it with me. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? We are adjourned. So you're building a new food truck?